Michael, what is today's first beer?
What is today's first beer? So, disclaimer for everyone out there who cannot see, I do not have any of today's beers in front of me. I have a different beer entirely in front of me that has nothing to do with anything I'm pouring or pairing with these readings.
So do I.
I do.
I picked, I picked one of my favorites from.
That's from an earlier episode.
Mhm.
But I do have beers paired to these readings. So the first one is not available because it was a limited edition special release last year from Liftbridge Brewing in Stillwater, Minnesota. It is called Free the Bibs. It is a blood orange Hefeweizen. So Hefeweizen is a German wheat beer, very light, effervescent, kind of banana and clove flavors. And they've added blood orange to it, which brightens it up and gives it extra fruity kick. I chose this one to go with this reading because the theme of this reading is kind of, well, it's in the reading, surrender, and the release that comes along with that. So surrender in the sense of acceptance. And so I wanted something that was like, so when I read the reading, it was like the sun rising, sort of, or the sudden burst of light that came with this.
Would this be a good approximation of what it would look like?
No, it'd be much lighter.
Would it be much lighter? Okay.
Yeah.
I wondered if it would
wasn't
be
thinking so much of the actual color. I was thinking of the sensation of drinking. It's more that effervescence and the fruitiness and the little bit of tart, and it's just like bright.
A lightness of being.
Exactly. The lightness of being. There you go.
Perfect.
Got it.
So does that mean we're ready for our first reading?
It does mean we're ready, since neither of us have beers in front of us, so we can't talk about
Well,
whether we like it or not.
Yeah, I was thinking describing would look like I would have liked it.
Yeah, probably.
I'll put it, well, you said it's limited edition, so it's not.
Can't get any more.
Something really jumped out at me. You said we reacted to death differently than others. And I know I do, but I'm really curious how you react to death that is different from how other people do.
I think I speak a little in the book, and I didn't go into real depth about it, but at the time I was growing up, it was the Cold War first, and then we went into the Vietnam War. Mm-hmm. So death was always part of our community. When I was growing up, up until the Vietnam War, which was our, the army, the military was over there as advisors in the early 60s. So where the country as a whole may not have experienced a lot of the soldiers, or the military men, young boys dying, we did. It was our community. And there were, although there would be community sorts of services, the families were moved immediately. If you were overseas, they were gone. They didn't stay and go through a funeral and whatever. They were packed up, moved out, and gone. And so it was on the periphery, and you always felt it, but you didn't experience it. And then, of course, there was always you don't show emotion, and you're brave, and you're courageous, and so there were signs. So I talk in the book about, coming home from high school, and we would walk, and before my father went to Vietnam, he took me out in the car, and this was one of the only times, and he claims he didn't do it, but I wouldn't have known this if he hadn't been the one. He never claimed he didn't do it. He would say things like, I don't remember that. But he was a young man then. He was, I was 16. I was 15 when he went to Vietnam. So he would have been 35 years old, 36 years old. And he took me out for a ride, and he said to me, listen, if something happens to me, this is what will happen. And he told me how a chaplain and someone of his rank would come to the house to give us the news. And he went through the whole thing. So when we started seeing the sedans driving through our neighborhood, and he was there during the Tet Offensive. So there was a lot going on, and we were in Texas. There was an artillery base, and there was El Paso, and I forget what I'm sorry, Fort Bliss, and then I forget what the other base was close by, but lots of families. And they would show them on the news, the boys who had died, our evening fare on the news. But we would come home from school and see the sedans. And it was just so odd because we would kind of slow down or walk, continuing our conversation, look down to see what street they were going down, think about who was on that street, who it could be, somebody's father, somebody's brother, but we'd keep going because we knew we'd find out soon enough. And I had the experience when my mother and father my mother flew to Hawaii to meet my father for R&R, rest and recreation. We were left for the week that she would be gone or however long it was. And cared for, of course, by someone. And I was home that day because I didn't really feel well. And as I looked out the window, I saw a sedan pull up, and my mother had left that morning. And I will never forget how I felt. I sat down, I hid between the front window and the one that was near the doorway, and saw two men get out, and one was a chaplain. And I didn't put this in the book, but I hid, and the two men were there, and I guess the man leaned over and looked in and saw me on the floor, and then realized what I thought and started saying, no. He was the son-in-law of the woman staying with us. And he had just stopped to make sure she was okay. And
oh, wow.
He was in the neighborhood, and he was so apologetic. But I realized in that moment what it must be like. And I realized I didn't know how to reach my mother. My father had said to me, you call the Red Cross. You call it. He had given me all these instructions, but I was 15.
Right.
And so it was death. And I will tell you that when Dad died, I may cry now, but I worried that I wasn't emotional enough. And the doctors kept coming over to me while he was in cardiac arrest, or the nurses, are you all right? And I was going, I'm fine, because I'm very compartmentalized.